Welcome to How is God Calling You? A production of CTNY, the Catholic television network of Youngstown. It is a show that seeks to stimulate and assist youth and young adults to discover the path that God has chosen for them. Vocations to the priesthood, religious life, marriage, and single life will all be discussed. Your program host is Father James Corda.
Hello and welcome to this edition of How is God Calling You? Today we're talking with the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine. And joining me on today's show is Sister Joan and Sister Catherine. And it's such a pleasure to have you both on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're pleased to be here.
What we'd like to begin with is to share some information specifically on the order of the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine. Let's talk a little bit about the history, and then I'd like to talk about the charism of the order. So who would like to talk about the history? Sister Joan?
Well, I could say a little bit about the history of the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine's presence in the Youngstown Diocese, namely in Stark County, through the work of Mercy Medical Center and its beginnings in Stark County. We came there in approximately 1908 because Mrs. Rosa Clara purchased the William McKinley home in downtown Canton. And she requested actually that the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine staff the William McKinley home as an 18-bed hospital. Then around 1911, there was an addition added to the back of the home, and it increased its capacity to 71. And then in 1950, the Timken brothers also, they decided to donate their residence, the H.H. Timken residence, which sat on a 30-acre piece of land by Harrison and 12th Street. And that became the center of Mercy Medical Center, and that has been the site ever since. Now, since then, of course, 1950, it has expanded in a lot of different ways, and it's been noted for its excellent health care in a lot of different ways. In 1957, they had the first cobalt therapy treatment for cancer, which is based on a nuclear program. And in around that same time, the first cardiac catheterization lab was installed at the hospital. And that too was the second in the United States to be centered in a local community hospital. Now, since then, of course, they have added the emergency room, has had a lot of additions. They're noted, in fact, in their emergency room for having a catheterization located right at the emergency room. So that is the EMRs come, the emergency medical equipment trucks come in, they can radio to the emergency room so that the person is taken in the shortest amount of time. So they've been noted for that. And also the new surgery lounge. I just toured the surgery, outpatient surgery place, and its intensive care unit. It's beautiful, just beautiful, because they have tried to accommodate the families as well as the patient and giving good patient care.
We know when we talk about a religious community, the word charism always is on the forefront because that kind of identifies the religious community and what their gifts are. Sister Catherine, tell us specifically about the charism of your order and some of how that's celebrated within religious life.
The charism of the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine is that of charity and hospitality. Now, when we say charity, meaning love of God and love of neighbor, it really goes to the heart of the matter. You know, how much more can you do except that very central charism of love? And the heart has always been our symbol. The symbol is that the love of God for each one of us and our love of God, and that dedication to God and that relationship with God, from it flows out what we do. And so that love and that charism, that charity flows into everything that we do and each person that we meet. So each person is uniquely loved by God, and we are then called to love that person or that group or whoever we're working for as God loves.
Now, where does St. Augustine come into play with the community? How is he significant within your religious life?
Well, we follow the rule of St. Augustine. And when the community came to the United States, there were many Sisters of Charity. And the Sisters of Charity, because we followed the rule of St. Augustine, we choose to, at that time, they chose to be the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine. And the location was Cleveland, but we have moved out of Cleveland to other dioceses, including the Diocese of Youngstown. But still, our mother house is in Richfield. It's located within the Diocese of Cleveland. But we're also in South Carolina, and all of South Carolina, because that's one diocese, and we're scattered around in all the areas of South Carolina. And we're here also with the foundation in Stark County. And the foundation, that's very well known because it gets a lot of publicity. The foundation started in 1996, and that was with the sale of part of the hospital as partnership. And that foundation has really been remarkable. I have been on the board. We've had our Vicki Conley as our first CEO, and now we have Joni Close, and they have just been excellent people to work with excellent staff and board. But it's known for its quality childcare, that the initiative has been that of children from early age up until school, but now have also gone into the schools through Spark. But quality childcare has been the primary initiative, although working also with the healthcare of children across the board with dental and other areas that had been neglected, especially for poor children. Also, part of the charism is to meet the needs of those unmet needs, so that very specifically has targeted the unmet needs of children and their families, and has really done remarkable work in the area of Stark County. And of course, the Spark has gone into other counties and states, as it duplicates itself, because it is such a very good program.
Well, we know that the sisters obviously are very intimately connected with the hospital medical center in Canton. What other hospitals and medical centers in our area and in our state do the sisters participate in or own?
Well, we have two hospitals in the Cleveland area in Cuyahoga County. One is a downtown hospital, St. Vincent Charity Medical Center, and also St. John Medical Center, which is in Westlake, Ohio. Both of them have grown over the years. Actually, St. Vincent Charity was the very first hospital, community hospital, that we started when we came from France in 1851. We started a small place on the near west side, and then got moved over to St. Vincent Charity's site in 1865. So it's been there for a very long time. It also has some very firsts, namely Rosary Hall, which was started at St. Thomas Hospital by Sister Ignatia Gavin, and then she came to Charity and began Rosary Hall, and that has succeeded over the many, many years, just as St. Thomas's has, as kind of the center for AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. But also St. Vincent has the only psychiatric emergency room in Cuyahoga County, and it's funded by the Mental Health Board. And because it is the only psychiatric emergency room, it receives then all crisis kind of psychiatric care, and they have a special emergency area just for the mental health issues that people face. So there's a lot of different things. Right now, the other major step that we have taken as a congregation is to form a health system, which was done in around 1962, 63, right after at the time of Vatican Council II. And that health system now has become very centralized, and we have 5 hospitals under the health system, plus a relationship with Catholic Charities of Cuyahoga County under Catholic Connections. So the services are now shared in a lot of different ways to show collaboration, to demonstrate collaboration among Catholic institutions.
We're coming to the last few minutes of our first segment together. So I'd like us briefly, and we can carry this into the second part, to talk about the mission. We know that the mission of the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine is so important and valuable also in the healthcare system, but others participate in that mission as well. It's just not your community, but others. Can you talk a little bit about how that mission is realized?
Well, we've always been collaborators, so it's not new. It has expanded, but it certainly isn't new. Even the invitation to come to Mercy Medical was at the invitation of a lay woman. And it was also at the invitation of a lay person that the community went to South Carolina. At present, we have on staff in our hospitals and at the Regina Health Center, we have Ursulines, and we have Humility of Mary, we have Precious Blood, we have Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's in John Medical Center,
Yeah,
it's Notre
and
Dame.
so we, did I miss some?
IHM.
And IHM, yes. So we have, we've always collaborated, but we have even more so now. And those sisters who are really representing the Sisters of Charity and carrying out the mission and values in our healthcare system, they do such a wonderful job. They really captured the charism and the mission and the ministry of the Sisters of Charity.
That's really important how that sense of collaboration has been celebrated, and how important it is, I think, not only in religious life and religious communities, but also in the mission of the church as well. We're coming down to 1 minute before we take a break. Any other comments, Sister, on the mission at all?
Well, I would like to just quote from our constitutions that says, out of the traditions of the past, we find meaning for the present and hope for the future. Responding as our founding sisters did to the physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual needs of God's people. And that is because that is so broad, it can be lived out in all different kinds of circumstances. And as Sister Catherine indicated, so many other religious congregations and laity have taken that mission statement and tried to work it out within their institution.
We'll be talking a little bit more about that in a moment. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Whether it's passing on medicine, a blanket, or something as simple as a glass of water, that's how compassion works. And that's how Maryknoll works, hand to hand to hand. For nearly 100 years, Maryknoll's been passing on your help to the priests and brothers working in 26 countries around the world. Maryknoll, an American Catholic organization, dedicates 86 cents of every dollar donated to their programs, serving the world's poor and powerless. And that's how it works. Compassion flows from your hand to the hand of someone in need. Hand to hand to hand. That's Maryknoll.
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 That's Maryknoll. That's Maryknoll.
Welcome back. We're talking with the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine, and we're talking specifically with Sister Catherine and Sister Joan. before we took a break, we were talking about mission and that sense of collaboration and how others join in that. And Sister, you had something that you would like to say to continue that discussion. And then what I'd like to do after that is to talk a little bit about your own personal vocations, if we could. Sister?
Well, I'd like to say a little bit about who are the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine. And this is taken directly from our website, Sisters of Charity. So if you Google on the internet, you will find this on our website. We are a community of strong women, freed by our chosen lifestyle and committed to doing God's work. Our sisters serve in fields as diverse as accounting, spiritual direction, education, healthcare, parish ministry. But we see ourselves as women of prayer, God seekers, living in community with other committed women, drawn by mission, extending our gifts, women of love in touch with the human condition, peacemakers, justice seekers, hospitable at home with ourselves and others, risk takers with a pioneer spirit, flexible, dedicated, and caring, just ordinary people doing ordinary things, but for extraordinary reasons. Our individual talents are developed in a supportive environment that enables us to respond to emerging needs. And as the new millennium dawns and moves on, the Sisters of Charity are found where God's people are forgotten by society. We are responsible and creative stewardship of our community resources. We have increased our collaboration with others and expanded our world vision to draw us into a new century of service. And so we can begin with continuing our personal dedication to the Sisters of Charity.
And I think I'd like to get into a little bit more personal information. When we talk about vocation and a call, oftentimes when asked about that, we kind of point to someone and say, well, it was because of that person that I entered religious life, or it was because of this individual that I decided to become a priest. Has that been your experience in your early vocation, Sister Catherine?
There isn't as much individuals as there has been an atmosphere, and the atmosphere of service, the atmosphere of prayer and faith. And that originally, as most of us, came from my family. When I came to the United States, I was introduced to the Sisters of Charity by my cousin. And I felt immediately at home with the sisters, and then asked to join them, very soon afterwards. My greatest support has been actually within the community, the Sisters of Charity, because most of my family are not here. So my family, an extended family, has been very much around the community and the people and where I have served, and I have served in many different places. I see my vocation definitely as a calling from God, and it has been very right for me. It has been a very fulfilling, happy life, and I can't imagine myself really not being where I am. That doesn't mean that I don't think I could do a good job other places, but this is where God wants me, and this is where I want to be. And I have, over time, of course, that vocation develops as we live out our prayer life and our community life and our service. And my service has been mostly in the area of those who are very marginalized. First, taking care of children who had to leave their homes for one reason or another, and then the inner city, and now at the Catholic Worker in Akron, which are really our outreach is to homeless, people who are homeless, people who are very marginalized, and really do not have the support of family and often of friends. So that's where I am right now, and I really believe I'm doing what God has called me to do in my vocation. But vocation is a very deep calling. It's a calling from God to live out who we are meant to be and the best that we are meant to be. And the best that I was meant to be is where I am. It comes from our prayer life. It comes from our own desire to be the best we can be, not just for ourselves, but for God's sake and for the people that we serve.
I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically, Sister, with you on your present ministry, but I'd like Sister Joan to tell us about her, briefly about your story and your call to vocation.
My call to vocation is to religious life was definitely found also from support from family, but also support at the time that I finished high school and was ready to go to college, and I was dating in a very serious relationship with a young man. And as we talked about our future together, I realized deeply that I was restless, uncertain about whether I wanted to commit myself to marriage or whether God was calling me to something deeper. And because of that relationship and because of that uncertainty, I began then to look at various religious communities and decided too on the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine because of their ministry. And I think that God uses different ways to call us to a deeper commitment, to find, and I think you understand or believe you have a relationship with God, a commitment to religious life, when you feel that this is peaceful. That is, the presence of God within your life and your daily activities become more focused on prayer and, as Sister Catherine said, community life. I find that community life is very similar to family life because you have tasks to accomplish, you have relationships that you deepen with, and they become very important in your life, just as your family does, because you share prayer. We share prayer every day in the place that I live right now, and daily prayer, Eucharist, it becomes important, as well as ministry, service. And I too have been, my background is education and administration. I taught high school, and I taught chemistry and math in a high school, and then moved on to administration, became a principal, was elected to congregational leadership, all those kinds of things. But in each of them, I found myself to be very happy, joy-filled, because that is the attitude that was developed in the relationships that I had.
Sister, we're getting down to the last 5 minutes of our time together, and I'd like to go back to your specific work with the Catholic workers. And obviously, Dorothy Day is a significant symbol and example of all that. Share that with us.
Yes, Dorothy Day definitely has made a great impression on me as she, in her own prayer life, in her own depth of her own vocation, and in the way in which she ministered. The ministry comes from a very personable, a very personalistic, say that I am responsible in this particular place. I don't send them someplace else, you know. It's also that the people who come to us, and it's not just the people that we give shelter to, but also those who call us on the phone, you know, that we reach out in very personal way to those who are in need. And we do have, right now we have a family of 7 and a family of 5, as well as women in our homes. We have 3 homes. And we minister to them on a very daily basis. You know, I can be cooking, I can be taking care of a baby, I can be making appointments, you know, for our doing advocacy work for them. And so it's very varied, and it's one day isn't like the other. And it's also very interesting work. It can be very tiring work, but it's very, it really brings the best out, at least in me, and I think those who work with those who are most in need. And we also have a very spiritual program and do retreats with the homeless, both men and women. And that's a very significant part of our work, is that of the spiritual as well as the material, all the material things that they need. Yeah.
Sister Joan, you had mentioned prior to the taping that you're retired, but I don't believe it, because I don't think religious women actually retire. How has ministry over the years for you been rewarding, and why has it been rewarding for you?
I believe that each of the ministries that I have been involved with have been challenging. I like a challenge, but I also find that there are so many people who come and be supportive to what you are doing. One of the last places that I have retired from, if you will, was a place called Joseph's Home. And we started Joseph's Home in the year 2000, and it is a place for homeless men needing home health care. And it's located right across the street from Charity Hospital's emergency room. So as we take in gentlemen who maybe have a broken neck or broken back, or are diabetic, or have any kind of medical need and are homeless and are discharged from a hospital, they have no place to go. The shelters say, we can't take care of you. So we have a full-time social worker, a full-time nurse, and they work. We have 11 private rooms at the place, at Joseph's Home, and we specifically made it a home for the very reason of our charism. It is not a house, it is a home. And so you have responsibilities, just as you share we have a full-time cook, but they share in doing the dishes, cleaning up the place, keeping their room clean, keeping appointments, all that kind of thing. And I have to say that was very rewarding. I had never worked with homeless guys, and a number of people have said in the beginning, this will be terrible. But it wasn't. The gentlemen were very respectful. And when new men came to the place, to Joseph's Home, the others let them know right away, we don't swear, this is a home. And so we want to support each other in that. And so it was a very rewarding experience.
Well, Sister Joan, Sister Catherine, we certainly appreciate your presence on our show today, and God bless you in your ministry and also in your religious life, and God bless the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine.
Thank you very much.
Thank
it's a
you.
pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
How is God Calling You is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Corda.